The canvas is always my refuge, a place where the world with its rigid rules melts away. It's here that I can breathe, not as Thomas's wife or Marie's mother, but simply as Eleanor, the woman buried beneath the weight of duty. My brushstrokes dance across the empty space, creating the world as I long to see it. The quaintness of our town, with its cobblestone streets and sun-washed buildings, finds its way to my paints. I'm particularly fond of the weathered boats by the harbor, the seagulls perched atop their masts. There's an unfiltered life in those simple scenes. The rumble of Thomas's fishing boat breaks my sanctuary. It's a familiar sound, one that speaks of steady work and the honest exhaustion that brings untroubled sleep. We've fallen into a rhythm as predictable as the tides themselves. Even as a girl, I understood it would be like this, the fishermen's wives waiting with painted smiles, welcoming the smell of salt and fish into their homes as testament to a day survived at sea. I cannot say I'm unhappy, merely restless. There is a flicker within me that the life I paint refuses to ignite. Today, my brushstrokes are less serene. The paint mixes with a touch of desperation, an echo of that unsettling something that lives just beneath my skin. As I'm cleaning my palette, a shadow falls over my easel. I turn, expecting Thomas, or perhaps Marie returning from her afternoon lessons, but my eyes meet those of a stranger. "Forgive me," he begins, his voice resonating with a warmth unfamiliar in our town. "I was enraptured by your work." Such a deft touch, so full of the spirit this place holds. My cheeks flush. Few here give my art more than a passing glance. "You're very kind," I manage, hoping the tremor in my voice goes unnoticed. "My name is William. I'm a writer, new to the area and already quite smitten by its charm." His smile makes warmth curl in my belly, a warmth I haven't felt in years. There's something in his eyes, a kindling that mirrors the flickering restlessness within myself. It's both thrilling and frightening in equal measure. "Eleanor," I offer by way of introduction, "and welcome." We speak for a while longer. He tells me of city life, the vibrant clash of people and ideas that makes it so different from the settled nature of our coast. He doesn't speak condescendingly, instead, there's a genuine curiosity in his words, a desire to understand this place I call home. And when he looks at my paintings, truly looks, it's as if he sees the unspoken longings they contain. Thomas arrives then, his steady presence grounding me once more. Introductions are made, polite but stiff, two men from utterly different worlds brought together by circumstance. As they talk, I try to tamp down the foolish excitement that bloomed during my conversation with William. He's a visitor, a ripple in the pond of my life, and soon he'll vanish, leaving only the echo of his words on the wind. In the days that follow, William becomes a persistent presence on the periphery of my life. If I'm painting near the docks, he's sure to stroll by, hat tipped with a smile, asking questions about the fishermen's routines. When I walk Marie to school, he might appear at the corner bookstore, browsing the shelves with a thoughtful air. Each encounter is fleeting, polite, and utterly electrifying. There's a dance we haven't choreographed, but our steps fall into place nonetheless. "You seem distracted, Eleanor," Thomas remarks over dinner one evening. My hands clench around my fork. This is what I feared, the changes in myself becoming visible to him. "The light changes so rapidly this time of year," I say by way of explanation, difficult to capture on canvas. He nods, a flicker of concern in his eyes before it vanishes, replaced by his usual weariness. Part of me is relieved, the other part pierced by guilt. Then comes the day of the summer festival. The town erupts with laughter and music, garlands of wildflowers snaking through the streets. Eleanor, the painter, is a fixture at events like these, capturing the joyous faces and splashes of color for posterity. Yet, this year, I cannot bring myself to raise my brush. Instead, I linger at the edges of the crowd, watching. A hand settles lightly on my shoulder. "William." His touch sends a shockwave of forbidden delight through me. "Would you care to dance?" he asks, voice soft amidst the din. It's an innocuous suggestion, a polite gesture. I should refuse. But, as my eyes take in his hopeful expression, the word, yes, tumbles from my lips. We join the swirl of dancers, simple steps that allow us proximity but not impropriety. Yet, even so, I feel alight and dangerously reckless. My usual rhythm with Thomas is born of practicality, not the near-feverish joy I discover in William's arms. The music crescendos, laughter and voices washing over me, until all I can hear is the wild thunder of my own heartbeat. When the song ends, I step away clumsily, muttering an apology. He inclines his head, amusement lurking in his gaze. Then, he melts back into the crowd, leaving me trembling and utterly undone. After the festival, William becomes bolder. He waits for me as I take my morning walks along the cliffs, not with persistence, but a quiet patience that ensures our paths align. We speak of art, of literature, of the way the sunlight makes the ocean shimmer like 1,000 scattered diamonds. He awakens a part of me I thought long dormant, the girl who dreamed of more than aprons and fish suppers. Sometimes, in those stolen moments, I see a similar hunger reflected in his eyes. A hunger for something forbidden, something exhilarating, and it stokes a reckless fire within my soul. The day it happens, there is no grand declaration, no impassioned kiss amidst a sweeping storm. It happens in the quiet room behind the bookstore, amidst the dusty scent of old paper and forgotten stories. We'd been talking, as always, we were talking. He spoke of a pivotal scene in his novel, of a woman caught between duty and desire. Yet, those lines of fiction blurred with the reality beating in my own chest. It's not so easy, is it? I had whispered, my fingers tracing the faded spines of books I'd never read. To simply be good. He turned then, his voice low. Eleanor, whoever said you were meant to be simply good? And in that suspended moment, the world fractured. Fear warred with a desperate longing. And the longing, for once, outweighed the fear. His hands were gentle, yet insistent, his touch igniting a wildfire in my veins. Everything I knew, all the rules etched upon my heart, seemed to vanish in the heat of his gaze. The dusty room transformed into our own private world, a place where only we existed, bound not by propriety, but the raw, pulsing need that crackled between us. Afterwards, as we stumbled out of the shadows, a breathless shame coiled in my belly. I should have stopped it, should have turned away. And yet, as he brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, a wicked thrill unfurled within me alongside the guilt. In the following weeks, I am both Eleanor and someone else entirely. With Thomas, I play the part of the dutiful wife, suppressing the tremors in my hands and the wildness in my eyes. But with William, I shatter. Our trysts become a desperate addiction. We steal moments on windswept cliff tops, in the hush of the library, our bodies tangled amidst the towering shelves. Each time, I tell myself it will be the last. Each time, I am proven a liar. The whispers of right and wrong become a white noise buzzing at the edge of my awareness. I float in a thrilling, destructive symphony of sensation, consequences and abstract worry for tomorrow. There is a hunger in William's eyes that both frightens and emboldens me. In him, I see a rebellion against the life I've settled for, a glimpse of a world where I am not merely a wife and mother, but a living, breathing woman capable of consuming fire and burning just as bright. The exhilaration cannot last. It is built on lies and stolen moments, and that foundation is more sand than stone. Yet, even as my rational mind screams at me to stop, another part of me clings to the tempestuous passion, savoring the way it makes me feel alive for the first time in years. I tell myself I'm in control, that I paint the strokes of this affair, choosing where and when. Yet, with each clandestine meeting, that illusion of control slips further from my grasp. Our trysts no longer feel like simple escapes. They've become the vibrant, dangerous heart of my existence, throwing everything else into stark relief. The whispers of the sea, once a source of solace, now feel like an accusation. The seagulls, their cries so playful before, seem to mock me with their freedom. Even my beloved paints and brushes begin to feel foreign in my hands. No longer instruments of creation, they are daily reminders of the deception I wear like a mask. It's not only the world around me that shifts, I change too. William tells me I have an artist's fire in my eyes now, a hunger that wasn't there before. I catch glimpses of that woman in mirrors, with her flushed cheeks and disheveled hair, a desperate beauty born of recklessness, and I barely recognize her. The lies I tell are small at first. An extra trip to the market, a forgotten errand. But they coil, tightening as my need for William grows insatiable. The once vibrant hues on my palette seem to dull, as if my art itself is leaching away with each stolen hour. One afternoon, we are behind Mrs. Bennet's flower shop. The scent of roses, so sweet and innocent, mingles sickeningly with the sweat on our skin. We are hidden in shadow, but it doesn't feel like enough. Town gossip always travels fast, and we are playing a dangerous game with fate as the dealer. As William traces the line of my jaw, his fingers lingering, a terrifying vision flashes through my mind. Thomas's honest face twisted in anguish, Marie's eyes full of betrayal. I lurch back, a choked sound escaping me. William's eyes, previously alight with desire, narrow into slits of confusion. "Eleanor, what's wrong?" he presses. "I can't," I gasp out, "I can't do this anymore." Frustration creases his brow. He's used to getting his way, and my defiance is a rain cloud upon his parade. And suddenly, I see our affair for what it truly is. Him taking, me giving, until there's nothing left. He calls it passion, but I see the hollow center of it, the selfishness that thrums beneath the pretty words and furtive touches. I am not his heroine, just the latest chapter in the story of his desires. That evening I paint with shaking hands. The scene is the beach, one I've captured countless times. But this time, the ocean roils. The waves lash out, and the once pristine sand is marked with debris as if a great storm has just ravaged it. It is an ugly truth painted upon the canvas, a reflection of the tempest that has consumed my own placid soul. It's Marie, ever observant, who becomes the catalyst for the unraveling. I find her perched on my painting stool one afternoon, my half-finished beach scene displayed before her, a damning accusation. "That's not how the beach usually looks," she says quietly, her voice devoid of its usual childish lightness. My heart hammers a frantic beat. "Just an artistic choice, darling," I manage, forcing a smile I'm sure looks more like a grimace. She studies me, her brow furrowed in a way that makes her seem years older than her mere 15 years. "You're different, Mama. Distant. Your eyes." She trails off, unable or unwilling to articulate the suspicion that hangs heavy in the air. Guilt slices through me, a far sharper pain than any fear of discovery. I should reassure her, weave another comforting lie, but I find myself strangely paralyzed. "Marie," I begin, unsure of what words will follow. But she cuts me off with a swift shake of her head. "No. I don't want to hear it." She runs then, leaving me alone in the suffocating silence of my studio. The incident echoes through the days that follow, chilling the exchanges between myself and my daughter. She observes me with a wary distance, no longer the carefree girl but an accuser cloaked in youthful skin. Panic simmers constantly beneath my composure, a pot threatening to boil over. And William, with his insistent notes and furtive glances, becomes a tormentor. He still believes this a lover's quarrel, a momentary obstacle to be overcome with a grand gesture or a clever word. He doesn't understand that I'm not fighting with him. I'm fighting with myself, with the destructive part of me that reveled in his chaos. The crisis point arrives with startling swiftness. Thomas comes home early one stormy day, not with the usual haul of fish, but with a face etched with bewildered grief. "They're saying, in town, people are." His voice stumbles, unable to finish the accusation. It doesn't need to be spoken. We both know. The whispers have reached him, slithering from the gossips on street corners into the heart of my own home. Marie stands huddled just behind him, her small frame trembling. She casts a single glance in my direction, a world of condemnation in her tear-filled eyes. And in that moment, I finally shatter. It's true, I admit, the words a lead weight on my tongue, it's all true. Thomas stares at me as if I've become a stranger, as indeed I have. The weathered lines on his face deepen, carving a map of his pain. It's a pain I've caused, and the enormity of it threatens to crush me. He turns away, unable to bear the sight of me. I see him retreat to his worn armchair, hands covering his face. My beloved paints and brushes sit abandoned on a nearby shelf, mocking witnesses to my betrayal. The following days are a blur of silent meals and sleepless nights. We move through our home like ghosts, the air thick with shame, anger, and a sorrow so deep it threatens to drown all three of us. How long? Thomas finally rasps out one evening, shattering the fragile quiet we'd managed to construct. My voice is a mere whisper. Months. He closes his eyes, a single tear escaping to track a path down his weathered cheek. And this man, did you love him? The question hangs between us, a razor blade poised against my throat. Love. I had twisted and distorted that word until it became unrecognizable, an excuse for selfishness and thrill-seeking. No, I say finally, and it is the hardest truth I've had to utter. I don't think I did. He nods, a jerky movement devoid of understanding. He leaves the room then, and I hear the faint click of our bedroom door shutting behind him. Another night I will spend alone, haunted by the ghosts of my choices. William does not come again to our house. Days turn into a week, and the persistent notes he once left in cleverly hidden spots cease. I hear snippets of gossip at the market. They say he's gone, fled back to the city under a cloud of small-town scandal. It's both a relief and a fresh wound. He was my catalyst, my poison, the embodiment of my recklessness, and now he's vanished like mist on a summer morning. The confrontation I dread most, yet know is inevitable, occurs during a bleak twilight. Marie sets her plate down after barely touching dinner and fixes me with that same accusatory stare that has become so agonizingly familiar. Why? She bursts out, the word echoing in the room with the force of a long-suppressed scream. Why would you do this to us? Tears well in my own eyes. I don't know, Marie, I don't truly know. I begin, but falter. I can't give her platitudes about feeling trapped, about empty spaces inside of me that William temporarily filled. She deserves more than my excuses, and somehow, I have to find a way to give it to her. I can't change what happened, I say, my voice thick, but I want you to know. I was wrong. I was selfish. And I never meant to hurt you or Papa, never. My voice catches. She looks at me for a long, unbearable moment, then rises abruptly and leaves the room. I don't try to stop her. I doubt there are words in existence that could bridge the chasm of pain I've created between us. It's later that night, as the house lies still and dark, that Thomas finds me in the sitting room. He sits across from me, a chasm of hurt and betrayal separating us. What now? He asks, his voice hoarse. There is no easy answer, no magic formula to erase the damage done. Yet, somewhere amidst the wreckage of my mistakes, a glimmer of resolve flickers to life. I don't know, I answer honestly, but I won't ask you to stay if you don't want to. With a heavy sigh, he reaches for my hand. It's calloused and rough, bearing the marks of his labor. In his grasp, my own hand seems so small, so unworthy. Yet, he doesn't let go. William's disappearance doesn't bring the swift relief I foolishly imagined. Instead, it leaves a void, an ache that mirrors the hollowness I now feel inside. Mornings feel endless, punctuated by the tick of the grandfather clock and the emptiness that echoes in our once cozy house. The townsfolk treat me with a mixture of pity and scorn, whispered gossip trailing me like an ill wind. I walk with bowed head, focusing on placing one foot in front of the other, an act both mundane and strangely necessary. It's all I can manage for a time. My paintbrushes sit untouched, the canvas is a stark, accusing white. I don't have the heart for creation when my own life feels like a grotesque mockery of art. Yet, even in that emptiness, a flicker of defiance begins to stir. William thought he was my muse, the inspiration for a rebellious awakening. He was wrong. Pain, guilt, the devastation etched on my family's faces. Those are my true muses now, terrible and harsh, but undeniably mine. One day, I find myself at the beach. Not the picturesque scene of my happier paintings, but the desolate stretch just north of town, where the cliffs rise sharp and unforgiving, casting long shadows upon the sand. The wind howls a mournful tune, mirroring the tempest within my own heart. It's here I finally pick up a brush again. The strokes are hesitant at first, the colors a muddled mix of anger, sorrow, and a desperate need for something resembling absolution. The scene that emerges is bleak and unflinching. No idyllic boats, no quaint cottages. Instead, a fractured shoreline, waves stained a dull gray, and a single seagull perched on splintered driftwood, its cry echoing a word I barely dare whisper: regret. Marie watches with silent contemplation as I paint. The distance between us has not closed, but a fragile thread of understanding seems to be emerging. There are no conversations of forgiveness. That is a bridge to be rebuilt, one painstaking brushstroke at a time. Thomas comes as well, standing quietly at my side, his presence a rough comfort. He doesn't comment on the paintings, the ugliness I render with stark honesty. He understands, I think, that this is my confession, my penance. A way to transmute the destruction I wrought into something resembling truth, no matter how painful to witness. When the light fades and my hands tremble with fatigue, I step back and survey my work. It's a testament to ruin, to the shattering cost of a single, selfish misstep. And somewhere, amidst the desolate hues, lies the first hesitant step toward something else. Perhaps not redemption, but the possibility of it, a shore I can only hope to reach one agonizing stroke at a time. Marie finds her voice again, not with words, but through her own hidden talent. A notebook appears on my bedside table, its pages filled with scrawled lines and ink blotches that bleed through the thin paper. It is not a diary, but a collection of jagged verse, her pain and anger transformed into a raw, private form of expression. Some nights, I hear her stifled sobs through the thin walls between our bedrooms. My own tears flow as I decipher snippets. Shattered glass and broken trust, the seagull's cry is Mama's now, and worst of all, I don't know my father anymore, and I hate you for that. These word daggers carve deeper wounds than any the townsfolk could inflict. Yet, I accept each blow without protest. It is my cross to bear, the consequence of trading my family's steady love for a counterfeit rush of excitement. Thomas and I speak little in those first weeks, but there is a shift. We navigate the silent spaces of our home with the practiced steps of an old, weary dance. The unspoken question hangs heavy in the air: is there enough left to salvage? Some days the answer feels like a definitive no, my sins an insurmountable weight crushing any hope of repair. Other days, I catch a flicker in his tired eyes, a stubborn sort of resolve, and foolish hope rekindles in my own battered heart. We begin counseling with old Pastor Matthews. It's awkward and halting, dredging up pain neither of us wishes to revisit. Yet, it forces us into the same room, facing not only the wreckage of the past but also the fragile tendrils of a possible future. It's during one of these sessions that Thomas lets out a sharp, bitter laugh. All those days, out on the sea, he murmurs, thinking I knew my wife, the kind of woman she was, blind as a damn fish. I flinch, but he raises his hand, wearily. No, Eleanor, let me finish. Point is, maybe I didn't know you, not truly. Just like you didn't know the price of whatever that was. The room falls silent as we both contemplate the chasm those words reveal. It's Marie, ever observant, who unknowingly offers a bridge. During a family session, she reads a poem from her notebook. Home isn't just a house, it's the smell of bread and the way the clock ticks, and sometimes it gets broken, but maybe there are glue and nails enough to fix it. Her voice breaks on the last words, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thomas reaches for her, clumsily, but she pulls away, her gaze settling on me, defiant and tear-streaked. I speak then, my voice hoarse. Marie, your poem. It's beautiful. And it gives me hope. It's a tiny thing, that admission. But it marks a change. A shift away from the abyss of blame and recrimination, towards the terrifying, unsteady ground of possible reconciliation. Time becomes the slow healer. There are no grand gestures, no dramatic declarations of forgiveness. Instead, rebuilding happens in the minutiae of shared existence. Thomas brings in a haul of mackerel, and I clean and prepare it without prompting, the familiar rhythm and the sharp scent of fish easing a tightness in my chest. Marie starts leaving her notebook open on the kitchen table, as if inviting me to bear witness to her outpouring of grief and confusion without having to ask. Counseling sessions with Pastor Matthews become less fraught. Laughter even resurfaces, tentative at first, then building into something real and hopeful. It echoes in the house once more, chasing away some of the shadows. Yet, healing is not a straight line. There are nights when nightmares jolt me awake, the specter of William and my own weakness looming large. Mornings when I see my cowardly reflection in the mirror, loathing mingling with guilt. And always, the lingering ache of what I've done to Marie, a wound that may forever leave its scar. Through it all, I rediscover my brushes. They still feel foreign at first, as if we are two strangers, forced to reacquaint ourselves. The paintings that emerge are not the pleasing scenes of yesteryear. There's an edge to them now, a rawness born from the storm that battered my soul. One afternoon, a stubborn determination takes hold. I prop up a large canvas in the fading light and begin to paint not the sea nor the quaint cottages, but my family. Thomas is there, his features etched with weariness but softened with a newfound gentleness. Marie stands at his side, her chin held high, defiance still present but tempered by a fragile vulnerability. And I am there too, not hidden or shrouded in flattering light, but with tear tracks visible and my hands clasped in a silent plea for a forgiveness I'm not sure I deserve. It's months before I dare to call it finished. The day I unveil the painting to my family, I brace myself for recoil, for the anger that may rise like a tidal wave. But Marie, always my most severe judge, stares at it with wide eyes. It's honest, she finally whispers. Thomas runs a calloused hand across the painted surface, as though searching for some hidden truth. It's a damn good painting, Eleanor. And maybe it's the start of something. Whether that something is true forgiveness or simply a hard-won understanding, I cannot say. Yet, as I stand between the two people I love most, an unfamiliar lightness stirs within me, not absolution, but the fluttering wings of hope taking tentative flight. A year passes, marked by the changing tides and the slow blossoming of trust. The townsfolk's gossip fades from shrill whispers to begrudging silence. Our lives settle into a new rhythm, scarred but undeniably stronger for it. Thomas and I rediscover the spaces we share, quiet evenings on the porch, the comfortable cadence of long-practiced arguments about which fish make the best stew, and nights when we fall asleep to the lullaby of the ocean. It's different from the innocent contentment of before, but there's a depth to it now, forged in the fires of our near shattering. Marie's poetry transforms too. Alongside the verses of heartbreak, there's a new resilience blooming. Poems of the sea with its enduring power, of the way sunlight turns even broken shells to shimmering treasure. One afternoon, she shyly hands me a poem with a trembling smile. It reads, "Forgiveness is a funny plant, needs time and careful sun. Maybe it will bloom again, maybe a different flower." It sits on my easel still, a daily reminder of the journey we continue to travel. My paintings command higher prices in the city galleries nowadays. There's a newfound demand for the unfiltered truth I put onto canvas, it seems. Yet, the paintings I treasure most are those that hang in our own home. They chart the course of our healing, bleak scenes of storm-tossed seas gradually transitioning into brighter hues, mirroring the slow return of warmth to our household. One summer afternoon, Thomas suggests a family trip to the beach. Not our usual spot, but a secluded cove further down the coast, a place we haven't visited since Marie was a small child. I hesitate, old fears prickling, but he offers his hand, weathered and strong. The day is a gift. We build sandcastles with a laughter that feels both foreign and familiar. Marie, now taller than me, splashes with the carefree joy I thought lost forever. As the sun begins to sink, painting the sky with streaks of vibrant color, I unveil the easel I'd quietly brought along. It is not the sea that I paint this time, nor the quaint cottages of our town. Instead, I paint them, my family, standing against the backdrop of the setting sun, their figures bathed in golden light. It is an image of hope, of forgiveness, of a shared journey towards a horizon we cannot fully see, but one that we'll now face together. The canvas fills with color, and with each brushstroke, I release a little more of the past, embracing the fragile beauty of this imperfect second chance. For scars and all, this is my masterpiece. A love story not of youthful passion and reckless desires, but of enduring bonds, weathered by storms and emerging all the more radiant for it.